So if you look at the syllabus, one of the things you'll notice is we have our two tests, the midterm and the final, and then we have this other thing that counts a significant amount called the creative visual or audio project. And so I just want to record a very short video talking a little bit about what that is. Now, it isn't due until December 15th at noon. So you don't have to turn in the project until the final exam period. Now, unfortunately, normally during the final exam period, we get to present and share our projects with each other. Instead, I'm going to make them available so you can all look, and I'll have you do some sort of very easy response to at least one or two other projects, but we won't be able to share that community experience where we eat food and talk about each other's work. Instead, it's going to be you submit this online. So if you go to Blackboard, I've put up two files that will interest you. The first is the final project rubric. There you'll be able to see how I'm actually grading the project. So you want to look at that. Use it as a checklist when you're working on the project, although to be honest, it's a little bit vague because the projects can be so different, both in topic and style. The other thing that's more important is the final project description. So let's take a look at those two things. First, let's take a look at the description. I think that'll be more useful. So for the visual or audio final project, it should be audio, not audible. For the visual or audio final project, this is your chance to show off your creativity. So I want you to choose a topic that interests you and then do something that relates to one of the theories in class, but engage in it, engage with that idea, with that theory in a way that you can present through either a visual medium or an audio medium. This is your chance to be creative. In a sense, this is inspired because, first thing, I don't want you to write more papers. You're already writing enough papers for your class. You're already taking the test, which is testing your understanding of theory in a more traditional manner. The other thing is I'm inspired by Patricia Hill Collins' writing, right? A lot of theory over history has taken place in these other spaces through storytelling, through music, through painting, through photography. Those are places that can convey ideas that relate to society in a different way than writing a paper. Now, if you're someone who doesn't consider yourself to be, you don't consider yourself to be creative, you have options. Now, the first thing I'll point out is I want you to submit a proposal by October 29th. That's before we go online, if everything goes according to plan this semester. That will give me a chance to respond to you and tell you if the project seems to be working. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do other than I want you to do something that is visual, that you can just turn in and other people can see. You're not going to actually present it, right? So visual in the sense of someone can just look at it and get something out of it. Or it can have audio where you actually record something that people listen to, or it could be even a little video, right? Something that connects audio, the visual and audio elements, right? So you have that option. People have done a ton of different things. I used to not give examples of past projects because I didn't want to push you into something, but that's fine. If you want to repeat something that someone did in the past, if it actually connects with you, you can do it. Or if you just want to get a sense of the type of stuff people do, then you can look at these examples. So I'll just point out a few of them. People have made board games. That's really cool. I love when people make board games. You have to come up with the rules. You can modify the games based on games that already exist. So people have made different versions of Magic. People have made different versions of Life. That's an option. That can capture something as long as you make a board game that in some way captures the ideas of a theorist or multiple theorists. People have made charts where they actually, again, doesn't have to be the most creative in the technical artistic sense, but people have interviewed employees at different types of workplaces and made charts and graphs based on the response. People have put together zines, which are these mini magazines that are handmade to capture different themes. So one person explored music genres and looked at how punk music and rap music related to different theorists. Another person made a zine where they did research on suicide in the United States, in particular looking at suicide from people returning home from war, and tried to connect it to Emil Durkheim and see how that worked. People have done photo essays, right, where you go out and take a series of photos which you think capture a certain thing. So one person did that according to body norms, so using Norbert Elias, who we'll read later in the semester, and did photo essays looking at this concept of the civilizing process and the distinction between public and private. Another person actually knit a tapestry where they used different color threads to map out increasing cultural or decreasing capital. That's a theme that we don't talk about. Another person used Frantz Fanon, and they actually captured stories of the first time people felt they were racialized by someone. And then they had a picture of that person or a picture of something that person owned, which captured that moment, and then just a short, concise summary of the story. Right. So I hope what you're getting a sense of is the way that the different options you can do, right? You can make a little mini magazine. You could take photos of something. You could stage the photos, or you could actually look for photos that already exist in the world. Not photos that exist in the world, but things that exist in the world that you could take photos of. You could paint if you want to. You could draw if you want to. You could interview people and simply make charts. There's lots of different options. The key thing is you want to start brainstorming early so you don't wait to the last minute. And the other thing I'll say is I assigned this project because I want it to be fun. I don't want this to be something challenging and brutal for you to do, right? My whole goal is for you to actually come up with an interesting way to engage in a topic that is different from a traditional paper. If you hate this, if you say, I absolutely do not want to take a picture, I do not want to make a podcast, I don't want to make a documentary, then I will allow you to write a paper. But the paper needs to be in the 8 to 10 page range. So it should be on the longer side. So a long paper, and in this paper, I would want you to engage in detailed analysis of two of the theorists, right? And you'll have to come up with, not creative, but come up with at least a somewhat original way of engaging with those two theorists. I will allow that. I'm not going to force you not to do that, but I'm trying to push you to do something more fun and more interesting and get you out of that kind of routine that we're used to. Run ideas by me. I'm always happy to brainstorm with you. Again, I want this to be enjoyable. Let me show you the rubric, which will also help. So we got the visual essay rubric. So you can see, here's what I'm going to be grading you on. Oh, that's the introduction to sociology one. But I modified it. I just have the wrong title. So I'll change that later. So here's the things that are key. First, the connection to the theorist is clear, right? Whatever theorist or multiple theorists you're using, I need to be able to understand it from looking at the video, from looking at the audio, what you're doing. Correct application of ideas. If you're drawing on a theorist and engaging with them, you need to do it correctly. Depth of connection. I don't want this to be superficial. It's a final project. Now, some things are hard, right? You're making a painting. So the painting, it's hard to go in a ton of depth. I understand that, but I want you to capture something about the theory. Next thing I'm grading on. Interest, clarity, and the amount of work. So, is it interesting? Will someone look at this and say, oh, that's kind of a curious thing. That's something I want to learn more about. Is it clear what you're doing? If you have a series of charts, can people read them? If you have a painting, can people tell what the painting is about? I also want to know, and this is really hard because some of you have projects that are very different than other projects, but show me that it takes a decent amount of work. If you're writing a paper, it's in the 8 to 10 page range. So think about the amount of work it would take to write a good 8 to 10 theory paper, 8 to 10 page theory paper. That's the amount of work I want you to put into this. We don't have a ton of work for this class, right? You have a Making Connections post, you have 2 tests, and then you have this. This should take the same amount of work as studying for a test and taking that test would. And then the final thing is, show me some creativity. It doesn't have to be creativity in the artistic sense, but come up with something good and come up with something that is, on some level, a critical engagement with these ideas. We can talk about this more. You have the proposal. I'm excited to see what you do, but that's the plan.